Midway through the last quarter, Port Adelaide fans, players and coaches would have all been thinking the exact same thing. It's happening again. Even with a 6-win streak coming into Thursday night's qualifying final against Geelong and a much improved defensive profile in the back half of the year, it meant nothing in the end. The 84-point loss was Port Adelaide's second largest finals defeat, 35 points behind their highest in the 2007 Grand Final, which was also against Geelong. The torturous part for some Port Adelaide fans is next week. The team is still alive, but facing a red-hot Hawthorn who will be a big challenge to overcome. If they can't, it's straight set exits in back-to-back seasons, and surely if this happens, significant change will come. Before we delve into the finals history of Port Adelaide under Ken Hinkley, there are always reasons for a performance like that. In a tactical and personnel sense, so much went wrong. I know Tom Stewart was a laid-out for the Cats, who will be discussed later on, but Dan Houston and Kane Farrell were glaring outs. Ryan Burton and Darcy Byrne-Jones and their replacements were solid, and two of Port Adelaide's highest rated players on the night. Burton kicked a nice goal as well, but that line-breaking, angle-changing kicking wasn't there. It's the difference between two pretty good players and two elite kicks, and in finals, you really see the impact. Defensively, both struggled, and with poor games from Lachie Jones and youngster Logan Evans, Geelong feasted. Either the players didn't implement the game plan, or the coaches didn't tell them that Geelong's one wood are the over-the-backs with forwards running into space. Sean Manor kicked 3, Brian Myers 3, Tyson Stengel 4, and close kick 3 behinds. They did the same thing all night, and the power wouldn't or couldn't stop them. They failed to contain Patrick Dangerfield and Max Holmes, who taught Connor Rozee, Zach Butters, who was subbed off, and Jason Horne-Francis a finals lesson. Now Horne-Francis battled all night and had heart, but he was still beaten. Charlie Dixon couldn't turn or run, and Asava Radaglia is a battering ram who hasn't kicked a goal in 4 straight games. On Thursday night alone, there were no positional winners and a disturbing amount of red on the stat sheet. However, what has Port Adelaide fans fuming the most is this has happened so many times before. Last Thursday night was Port Adelaide's 4th straight finals loss. Let's go through each of them. The first of the losses goes back to the 2021 preliminary final at home against the Western Bulldogs. They were big favourites and got blown away 116-45. They lost clearance 41-35. Then last year, travelling to Brisbane in the qualifying final, Port Adelaide were defeated 123-75 and lost clearance 43-39. Then the week after that game at home against the GWS Giants, they lost 93-70 and lost the stoppage battle again 45-29. There are clear trends everywhere. In all 4 losses, especially early on in each of the games, they have been belted around the football. The lowest score conceded was 93 to the Giants, and the best score the Power could muster up was a lowly 75 points. 3 of the games have been at Adelaide Oval as well. Under Hinkley, their finals record is now 5 wins and 8 losses for a win rate of 41.67%, while in the home and away season, they have a winning rate of 61.4%. The numbers don't lie, and it's why the fan base is as frustrated as they are. It's fair enough. Is it really possible though that the previous few finals results did impact Port Adelaide? Kane Corns was on SEN the morning after, and the former Port Adelaide Premiership player said the team wasn't resilient enough when it mattered most. There were warning signs early on in Thursday night. I can't find the footage, but as Port Adelaide were coming out of the race, Captain Connor Rozee looked incredibly nervous. He was staring down at the ground while the other players followed him, putting their hands on the wall filled with photos of Port Adelaide's past. It flashed on the TV for me, and in total Rozee, who may be physically hampered right now, had just 16 disposals, 4 clearances and 6 clangers. It was the furthest thing from a captain's game, and when you compare it with Dangerfield, who was Geelong's captain, the difference is stark. But Rosie wasn't alone. Within the first 2 minutes of the game, 3 signs of nerves and fear were seen. The first was at the opening centre bounce. Zach Butters wins the ball and gives a neat handball to Willem Drew. He plain fumbles it, can't pick the ball up, and hack kicks it in what should have been a perfect power start. 50 seconds later, Shannon Neal sends in a high ball inside 50. Brandon Zirk Thatcher has a clear sight on the ball and should take an intercept mark. He feels the pressure and slightly ducks his head, dropping the mark. This led to a Max Holmes shot on goal. And the final warning sign was with Darcy Byrne-Jones. From the kick-in, he takes a mark and looks to take a short 20-metre kick. He scuffs it and the messy play ends out of bounds. And from the boundary throw-in, Geelong wins the clearance, gets it forward, and Miles Bergman's mistake to jump at the ball leads to Tyson Stengel's goal. From the first 2 minutes of the game, it is fair to say that mentally, some of the Port Adelaide players were shaky. As we know, things only got worse from about the midway point of the second quarter. But there still is next week. I can't ever remember a road team being heavy favourites in a final, but clearly Hawthorn have been the best side since about round 8. It's not even close. But maybe this will help Port Adelaide. Not many in high profile media spots will give them a chance, and maybe that will ease the burden on their shoulders. Zach Butters is still a chance to play despite having sore ribs, and you would think Charlie Dixon would make way for Todd Marshall up forward. It's really the opposite build up to last Thursday. Maybe Hawthorn might feel the pressure of being favourites, although they're playing so freely at the moment, it's hard to see them tightening up at all. On the opposite side, Geelong were outstanding. Chris got pre-game, said what he planned his team to do, and they did it all night long. Out the back, and out the back. The power couldn't stop them, and it now leads them to a 13th preliminary final appearance in 18 seasons. It's more than remarkable because of how even the competition has become, and the real story out of Geelong are their lesser likes. It feels like every late draft selection, delisted free agent, or scrap pickup they get turn to good players. Their development is the best in the AFL, and the club must scout exactly what they need and prioritise that over raw talent. A great example is Brad Close. At 21 years old in the Sandful, he averaged just 16 disposals and less than a goal per game for Glenelg. Those numbers don't jump off the screen, but they saw AFL attributes and picked him up in the 2019 rookie draft. Brian Myers' under 18 stats were far from impressive, but the same principles apply, and at pick 57 in the 2017 draft, he developed into a first team player after 2 years. These are just a couple examples from a long list. Go through the unsung heroes that played on Thursday night. It's just about the same story. Average under 18 or reserve level face numbers, but perfectly identified AFL translatable skills, and with 2 or 3 years to develop into their specific roles, they end up playing senior football. The Geelong Football Club makes this type of development strategy look so easy. They now sit pretty with a week off and a home preliminary final at the MCG. It now seems as if Ken Hinkley's coaching career at Port Adelaide comes down to this. If he wins, he survives, and if he loses, you would think Josh Carr would come in a year early. It's been a frustrating time as a Port Adelaide supporter with so many top 4 finishes in the past 5 years, but with no grand final appearance to show for it. Hinkley has turned the club around from a real mess over a decade ago and won a lot of games at the top level. His players did it for him against St Kilda in round 16 in a highly emotional game, and maybe the team can muster it up one last time and get a memorable finals win against the Hawthorn team in a permanent purple patch.